Well, for the sake of time, I will not take very long at all, but it is a privilege for me as one of Dillon's pastors here at Kensington and a fellow football coach at Adams, though I didn't get the chance to coach Dillon. That would have been next year on varsity, but I gotta say this. I've been a part of a lot of funerals. I've never once, Steve probably concur with me on this, seen that many kids and that many adults say that many nice things about one person. Seriously, it's a long funeral because it should be. It really is. I mean, you guys, it's because of who he was. And I'll just keep my remarks very brief. I'll just summarize what I think we've all heard here today. I'm a guy that loves football, and you got to love a guy like Dillon Cope who loved football. I mean, I know he played a little basketball, and I know he had a pretty good fastball and baseball, but who cares about those sports? Football is it. You know, and Dillon loved football because he had a passion and a spirit. You can go out and smack somebody, and it's okay, and you can just let it go. And even seeing that picture at the end, him tackling a guy with, of all numbers, number 40. I mean, think about that, right? Coach Call just handed out numbers randomly, and God's been in control of this young man's life his whole life. He gets the number 40, which some of you know is a very significant number spiritually for God. It's almost a number he just put himself on Dillon's life for his last football season. So I thought, you know, in the spirit of DC, the spirit of Dillon Cope, and the spirit of football, here's what I heard from his parents as I sat with him on Monday, and I watched just almost from a distance as a coach and even a pastor in his life, and just heard from all of you. 3 words I thought of. First one is this: Dillon Cope was about now. You don't wait till tomorrow. You don't wait till next week. You don't wait till next season. Do it right now. It's the Latin phrase, what? Carpe diem. I mean, it's seize the day. That is his life. We were sitting there with Kevin and Kim, his parents, talking on Monday, and Kim shared the story of the cardiologist. I don't know the exact date, but he basically told her, do not let your son play football. His heart's not strong enough. His lungs aren't strong enough. The chemo and the disease, you shouldn't do this. I mean, I'm sitting there, you know, I'm a dad, I'm a coach. I'm like, so what happened? And she says, I look over at Dillon, and his hands, you know, are covering his face. He's crying. She says, I've seen him cry maybe twice in his life. It was like, there is no way you're not going to let this young man play football. And he played football. And it was one of the greatest memories of his life and all of our lives, to be able to be a part of seeing a young man, carpe diem. Do not wait till next year. Get it done now. Now, by all, you know, common sense, they shouldn't have let him play football. I mean, most parents would say, you let your son play football? He had leukemia? Yes, they did, because they're great parents. Way to go. Mike and Sean, way to go. You raised a great kid. Let me tell you, you really did. Way to go. But here's the deal. Dillon Cope wouldn't play football unless he wanted to play football. And why did he want to play football? Because he had something many of us don't have. He had the ability, because of the disease in his life, to see that life is short and it's brief and you seize every moment. And just sitting there with him on Monday and listening to all of us today, I'm thinking, how many days and opportunities and hours and moments do I just let go by? And I don't grab that now moment, and I don't live that moment because I think I got tomorrow, I got next year, I got next week. Guess what? You don't know, and I don't know if we get tomorrow. Dillon had a beat on that. He understood that. And so he seized the moment of now. And I'm saying to you, through the life and death of Dillon Cope, seize your now moment. Make the phone call. Fix the relationship today. Take the risk. You have a dream, go for it. Don't think, oh, maybe. Go for it. In the spirit of DC, go for it. He's screaming at you right now saying, live every single moment of your life. So he's saying to us, isn't he? And some of you and some of us have something we got to fix, and somebody we got to talk to, and something we got to make right, and some risk we've been thinking about. Today's your day to say, in the spirit of Dillon Cope, I'm going to take that step. So that's the first word. When I think of Dillon, I think of now. The second word I think of is focus. He had an amazing focus. Now here's one of the things that some of you know about football that if you don't, I'm going to teach you real quick. And I'm not a defensive coach, I'm an offensive coach, but we got some defensive coaches right here. And Coach Call put Dillon Cope at linebacker. Why? Because linebackers have great eyes. They see the play, they know what to read, they're focused. Troy Polamalu, perfect example. You ever get NFL films inside that helmet, you just see these eyes. You guys remember, what's his name from the back? Yeah, Singletary, same thing, man. He's lined up. That's Dillon Cope. He could see something. Now, you guys know, if you know football, he's not big enough to be a linebacker. He shouldn't be a linebacker. Superman stood up. That's a linebacker. That's how big you're supposed to be. How much did he weigh? 115. Linebacker on a JV football team. Doesn't happen. Shouldn't happen. Way to go, Coach Call. Shouldn't happen. Why did it happen? Because he had a focus. The ability to see a play develop. Not everybody has that. And then go to where he's supposed to be with a passion and a spirit that Dillon Cope brought to the field. Now, here's my point about focus. Because as I watch this young man live and listen to his family talk about him, I notice this. If you think this young man's focus, if Dillon Cope's focus was on his disease, you've missed the whole point. If you think his focus was on playing football and even the wonderful Pittsburgh Steelers, I've heard enough about them, you've missed the point. Seriously, the thing that all of us got to realize is, where were his eyes? Where was his focus that literally drove him to live all the things you talked about in the character and the spirit and the optimism and the joy and the laughter? His eyes were right where his uncle just lived. Let me read it again to you in Hebrews 12. It says, therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, talking about all these men of faith, all these women of faith that went before us, it says, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. If you're not careful, if I'm not careful, we will be tied down by life and our own sin. Do not let it happen. It says, let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. You don't know, and I don't know how long that race is. It could be 16 years. It could be 80. We have no control. But he says in verse 2, he says, let us fix our eyes on Jesus. Dillon Cope, we all talked about today, fixed his eyes on something else besides himself, his disease, even his wonderful spirit. He fixed his eyes on Jesus Christ. And Paul says, or the writer of Hebrews says this, fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Let me tell you something. Dillon Cope knew Jesus. He knew Jesus. His eyes were fixed on him. Maybe a month or so ago, they were in Chicago, and a pastor asked Dillon, are you born again? Referring back to John chapter 3, where a religious leader has a conversation with Jesus about how do I get into heaven, and Jesus says you must be born again, you must be born new, you must be born spiritually. Your spirit's dead because of sin, you must be born surrendered to Jesus. So when this pastor asked Dillon, are you born again? Dillon understood what he meant, and he screams, yes, I am. See, his eyes were fixed on Jesus. And I'll tell you something, Dillon, the spirit of Dillon would be screaming to you and I, what are your eyes fixed on? You going to look at life? You're going to look at the disease, and I know we all have the question, why didn't God heal him? Why didn't God take it away? I don't know.